I live in Kansas City. It is daylight here. That's the home of the Super Bowl champions. And yes, we're still hanging on to that because there's no other sports to watch right now. So anyhow, I joined Lenovo in October. I've had about a decade of really focused IoT experience in the cellular module, platform and connectivity business with a company called Telit primarily. And was really happy to join Lenovo because we see so much of the activity moving to higher compute at the edge, which we'll address. So I'm on the Smart Edge team, and my job is to support the rest of my OEM selling counterparts to not only help you select the right edge computers to enable your application with Lenovo, but also to bring ecosystem partners from the really large partners we have, as well as other design resources and system integrators that we can bring to the solution. Does it sound okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Back to you, Frank, and thanks again.
Thanks, Chris. And I'd love to say the background is my home office in Florida, but not the case, unfortunately. Maybe soon, though. So we've gone through a little bit of an agenda here. We've gone through the introductions. What we'll be taking you through today is some considerations and challenges when you're looking at IoT or looking at or evaluating IoT solutions. One thing Brenda mentioned is, we've got a big audience here, and I don't know if a lot of our audience or a lot of our group know who Lenovo is. I'm going to assume, and I see some very intimate and close resellers on the list as well that we work with in our channel community, but I'm also going to assume that there's a large audience out there on the line who may not know anything about Lenovo. So we'll introduce to you who Lenovo is. We'll take you through the Smart Edge and IoT portfolio. We'll speak a little bit about the ecosystem and talk about some use case examples or customer scenarios that we've worked in or have deployed, some real live scenarios. And then I'll wrap up with what Lenovo OEM means, what it is, and how you could get involved. And just to kind of frame it out, within our OEM group or division, IoT is a pillar within OEM. So go ahead, advance, Chris.
Okay, real good. Thanks, Frank, again. So I'd like to kind of just start off, in our audience, I'm sure there's many of you that will nod your head and agree with several of the kind of pain points of implementing an IoT solution on a list. And you could probably add quite a few of your own. But I kind of wanted to give a little background for those new to IoT as well, of some of the considerations and challenges that we have to implement successfully an IoT application. And probably right off the bat is the subject of platforms. And platforms can be kind of a generic term. Quite often it is confusing to the customer base as to the fact that, there's a device management platform and a separate connectivity provisioning platform, and the dashboards are separate. And hopefully, you can work with a company that can kind of pull that all together, or you have those resources internally. But starting off, to seamlessly and efficiently connect to the different sensors and things, you need a security-enabled and reliable device management platform. And then moving on to connectivity, if it happens to be a cellular transport up to the cloud, you need to provision the SIM cards and monitor the data so that you can bill your customers or control your internal costs. And then, of course, there's the application, whether it's desktop applications or mobile apps that need to be customized and collect that data really from the device management portion of the application. And in many cases, you might actually channel that data to a separate analytics platform. So these platforms are on the cloud or possibly on the edge, or what we call on-prem, or maybe a combination, quite often a combination of both. So next is hardware. So in your designs, depending on your IoT application, you could have, fairly low compute activity and just need a simple LTE gateway. or you may even be designing an LTE module into your application, like in a consumer people tracking or dog tracking applications or a meter reading application, where there's really not necessarily a lot of edge compute. Or it could be all the way up to, you know, what we specialize in, and that's the smart edge computing platforms that have LTE gateways built in. The various wireless technologies that you have to deal with require a lot of resources and you know, expertise internally, from Wi-Fi to BLE to the LTE technologies, and they could be LP-WAN, you know, Cat-M or NB-IoT for low data rate applications, or if you're handling camera data and doing extensive AI and machine learning at the edge, you would need a higher compute edge computer. And you would need the data rates in LTE, like from maybe a Cat6 or Cat9 or above, to be current in the current technology. You may have RFID or NFC, or maybe just be wired via Ethernet in your application, or communicating up to, in remote areas like in oil and gas, sometimes there's a SATCOM. So all those wireless technologies need to be considered. And then you move on to the actual sensors in your application. So there's a lot of sensor companies out there. It becomes a challenge, you know, being able to communicate with the ones that are in existing equipment and or that you're designing in. And so you know, you have to make sure that your device management platform can communicate to these sensors, as well as your edge hardware. And then memory, processors, ADD converters, and if you have a battery application, power over Ethernet, there's just so much to consider. And that kind of leads into the design resources. So if you're a small company, maybe your expertise is, of course, the business solution that you're trying to provide, in channel to market, et cetera, and maybe you're really good at software, but you need a hardware engineering resource, somebody that specializes in cellular certifications, or a system integrator to pull it all together for you, even so much as possibly managing your manufacturing and installation in the fields. So at Lenovo, we're trying to build a very strong ecosystem so that you're successful. Clearly, our main goal in our team is to enable our hardware, you know, from our displays to tablets to edge computers, et cetera. And Frank will talk about that more. But we know that for you to be successful, you need resources that, as a tier one supplier, we can bring in the AWSs and Microsofts and Intels if that's needed in a conversation, as well as a lot of our channel partners and ISVs and system integrators, and help you get the job done. So again, and I hope to meet, after this March is over, I hope to meet some of you and have some face-to-face discussions to know about the local resources that we can work with there in Calgary as well, in Alberta.
So hopefully that frames out what we'll dive a little deeper into. But for the time being, let's swing back a little bit to who Lenovo is, Chris. Next slide.
You should see it there.
Perfect, perfect. So Lenovo is currently in 180 markets across the world. So in essence, 180 countries we are in. And we find this as a very strong competitive advantage. Not all of our competitors can say they do that or they're in that many markets. And actually a lot of our competitors in the ODM or tier 2, tier 3 hardware making space could actually only get into roughly half of those countries and markets. So it allows us to have a lot of worldwide global strength. Across the globe, we have 57,000 employees, roughly 10,000 engineers, research developers, and scientists developing, focused on product development. And also across the world, we've got 15 research and development centers and 4 AI innovation centers. And we also have R&D and AI development and innovation centers directly in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I'll put an invitation out there if anyone's interested in coming to see our executive briefing, coming down for an executive briefing at our center. Certainly an interesting and awesome experience. We do canned briefings. We do 1 to 3 day briefings, and they can be custom briefings based on your organization's company's desires, needs, wants, and interests. Next slide, Chris.
Should be there. Can you see it?
So we can. So we're very proud, humbly proud to currently have achieved 25% worldwide market share. And what that means is it puts us in the #1 PC position and really makes us the world's largest PC manufacturer. And just because you're #1 worldwide doesn't mean you're #1 in every market or every country. Some countries can be over-indexed, some can be under. And just pertaining to the Canadian market alone, it was 4 quarters ago. So I would say almost exactly a year ago to date, we became the #1 PC manufacturer in Canada as well. So a little bit about what we can attribute a lot of this success is really our route to market, which is the channel. And going around this dial gives a good view of what our channel consists of. I was going to go around and give examples of companies that lay in each of these pillars, but I think it could be unfair if I miss someone. I might show favoritism, or I may be given a free commercial for a competitor to a partner that's on the line with us today. So for the purpose of entities that are involved in each one of these pillars, I'm just going to not mention any names at this time, and it'd almost be virtually impossible because when we get to the VAR space, there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of names in that space. So from a distribution perspective, there's 6 main distributors that we work with in Canada and the US. System integrators that really have the experience, the knowledge of the entire ecosystem and can bring the ecosystem together. We work with a lot of VARs, value-added resellers, that are very strong in the local communities, have a lot of relationships in the local communities, and have deep roots in those local communities. We work with a lot of national business partners that could have presence nationally across Canada, but also into the US or North America. On the flip side, we're seeing some of the national partners from the US popping up on this side of the border as well. We work with a number of ISVs, really software makers, who have an application, and they may sell their application as software only, but they also may sell their application as a solution or as a turnkey appliance that has underlying compute with where that's Lenovo. And then we also have the Lenovo sales team employed by Lenovo while we talk to customers directly, and we may verbally be selling products. We also fulfill those transactions through our channel partners with the whole channel ecosystem that you see kind of in this dial here. A little bit more about Lenovo, about us, or some fun facts. Currently worldwide, we're 50 billion in sales. We work with roughly 2,000 different suppliers. So you can imagine that's a pretty massive supply chain. And we're actually on Gartner's rating of worldwide supply chain. We're within their top 25 worldwide supply chain manufacturers. We roughly have 800 forward parts stocking locations. So to really service our customers best we can when it comes to break fix, when it comes to 4-hour warranty and support on our higher end workstation and data center products, and that premier service that we offer. We have 33 data centers worldwide, and I would say I think we're at about 45 call centers again across the nation. But for those of you who do know us, you may know us for our #1 in performance, #1 in reliability, and for all you ThinkPad owners, that highly addictive red dot or scroll point right in the center of a ThinkPad. If you have never been a user of a ThinkPad, I highly urge it, but I'll certainly warn you that it's quite the addictive product, and you may never go back. Next slide, Chris. By the end of the presentation, I'm going to come full circle back on what our OEM solutions are, even outside of IoT and our OEM program. So we'll take a deeper dive into that, and we'll kind of leave that to the end for the interest of time. And this slide, one more click, Chris. This slide really displays the digital transformation of Lenovo and our company, and really the legacy of Lenovo, where we've come from. We're basically grown out of a large company, large Fortune 500 by the name of IBM, which is really a large services company, a large software company, and a large mainframe company. We grew up as a PC company. We also evolved into the cellular space with the acquisition of Motorola. So those of you who don't know, Motorola Mobility is actually a Lenovo company today. With the acquisition of System X, the x86 acquisition from IBM, we're also a data center and a cloud company. And as Lenovo looks into the future to remain relevant and into emerging markets and to strategic initiatives, Lenovo is now very deep into IoT, which is kind of what brings us today. Not only IoT, AI, edge computing, but we also play in that AR, VR, augmented and virtual reality space with those very cool goggles that you see on the bottom right there. And when it comes to edge computing, McKinsey predicts that it'll be an $11 trillion market. IoT will be $11 trillion market within the next 5 years by 2025. And by the end of this year, Gartner predicts that we will have 25 billion connected devices in the world. Now, with the emergence of edge compute, we Lenovo are seeing more and more demand for processing and computational type devices on the edge. Certainly, data center and cloud have their time and space and place, but again, with the emergence of things like the requirement of real-time and analytics, maybe in a retail store or a shop floor, with the need of AI providing immediate and on-demand results and answers. And even when we come to things like autonomous driving, I don't think, and we don't believe, there is much room or much time for the latency that a data center or a cloud provides, going over the wire, doing that compute and coming back to the wire and delivering it to that connected device. I mean, you know, milliseconds could literally mean life or death in an autonomous driving vehicle situation. And, you know, so the market is growing. The market is very disruptive. We believe, and I'm sure all of you believe, there's a lot of money to be made in this space. And we'd love for you to join us and be partners with us when it comes to this space. So at this time, we're going to go through our edge compute portfolio. I'll hand it over to Chris to take us through the next couple of slides here, and then we'll swing back over. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. So just a comment, you know, at Lenovo, we have a kind of a corporate 3S strategy, and basically all that means is we're, you know, always on, always connected, you know, from our, you know, new innovation in our PCs to our IoT edge devices. The smart infrastructure is really our data center, our server, our IoT server products, as well as pushing those out closer to the edge as well, maybe from devices. And we are focused on providing hardware that supports very focused smart verticals as well. And I think, and I did want to mention, so in our new groups, we're focused on 5G, again, AR, VR, like Frank mentioned, AI, of course, IoT with the edge computing and data. And these really support, you know, the initiatives. So in the Smart Edge portfolio, not only are we, you know, rolling out, and really our approach, by the way, is taking the architecture that we have at scale in our PC and our workstation business, and even our server business, pulling that into customized devices for IoT. So different input, removing fans, making it rugged, extending the temp range, et cetera. And then in addition to that reliable hardware, we're bringing services, what we call close to the box software services, the ability to customize needs, and bringing the partnerships. For example, we're AWS Greengrass certified and Microsoft Azure certified, so you can look us up on their sites, and those are becoming certified with the new products that we're rolling out. And there are a lot of verticals that we're focused on. These are a few of them: retail, manufacturing, healthcare, and building automation that you would expect. We're also working with, again, VARs and system integrators to take us into, a heavy focus in oil and gas and construction and some other areas. It's amazing. I had a call, with a large construction company the other day, and I couldn't believe how advanced they were in drone technology, and they needed, pretty sophisticated edge devices to collect that data at the edge, as well as interest in AR, VR. So with the AR, VR goggles, you can visualize, you can provide training on sites, you can visualize the equipment that you're going to install and need in a facility. So again, I'll just kind of fly through this slide, but we're starting off with the premium device hardware, and then added customization and services to create our Smart Edge portfolio. So the key is, connecting IoT devices and sensors securely to the cloud, and also being able to provide that edge compute to solve the latency and in some cases security issues. So there's applications where they really don't want the data to go to the cloud, but they want on-premise solutions that can make decisions and control equipment, et cetera. So now moving into kind of the fun stuff. These are, hopefully you can see these pictures really well, some close-ups of some of our popular IoT devices. Probably the most popular is the ThinkCenter Nano IoT on the left, and I'll show you an expansion box that goes along with that. The Nano IoT, well, I'll dive into that in a minute. And we've got the EPC 300, which is a little more rugged device with more of the input outputs included, and the ability to communicate with CAN bus, et cetera. And then we have the IO 520, which actually is a little lower compute, but extended temp range and additional input outputs. So diving into the M90N Nano IoT, very small form factor. This actually evolved out of our Nano desktop computer that fits on the back of your monitor. It's extremely small. It's a fan device, but we took that same architecture, stripped the fan off, added a heat sink and fans, put in additional input outputs, and added the expansion capabilities of an IO box to be able to address IoT applications. So instead of starting from scratch, we're taking the scale that we already have, selling millions of these nano devices in commercial, commercial business applications, and moving it into the IoT space. It's a 0 to 50 degree extended temp range, but really primarily mostly in building unless you use an environmental box, and we have solutions that we're working on to extend temp ranges even for the units that are not extended temperature built in. And it's MIL standard 810 certified. It does have the capability. This spring we're finishing up our North American cellular certifications, and we'll be shipping in late June, early July, North American cellular certified for all the main carriers, including Canada, integrated LTE Cat9 technology with a global M.2 card. So for a little fun, I would like to now play a video, and that will be the challenge to see if this hopefully works correctly. Here.
Chris, you want to put the volume up just a tad? That's good.
I was going to say, I can't really.
Up a tad, Chris?
Sorry, guys. Okay. Sorry about the volume there, but hopefully you got the message. That started out with our Nano desktop computer, and you saw how it, we extended that into the Nano IoT.
Chris, sorry, I was going to say, I had a couple people pop up questions. Do you want to take them now, or would you prefer them at the end?
We could take them now.
Sure.
Okay, so someone wants to know if this is a 5G upgradable throughput spec.
That's definitely in the plan. That all lies into our supplier of our M.2 cards, and we're having those discussions now. As you know, we actually at CES rolled out the first laptops with 5G in the ThinkPad line. And so there's a natural evolution to this in our roadmap. But currently, these are LTE Category 9. Does that help?
Yeah, and then the next question, does the M90 work on private LTE spectrum like CBRS?
I need to check on that. On the current one we're rolling out here again early this summer. I think it does have coverage for some of the CBRS bands, but let me confirm that. So if we could get who that contact is, we could get back to you.
Okay, sounds good.
And let me pause. It seems like I'm not properly sharing. What can you see right now? The Lenovo?
Lenovo logo.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what the problem is. Hold on. Just a second here. Let me get back to the right place. Ah, there we go. Technology. It's the driver. Can you see?
We can.
All right. Very good. And we're good with questions? All set?
Yep.
Okay. So the Nano IoT, at a glance, you can see the input outputs on the front and the back, and you'll be getting a copy of this presentation, so I won't go into the infinite details. We do have a lot of M.2 slots internally, and that's how we're facilitating the, the LTE, and we're also working on rolling out a complete LoRa version focused on the LoRa Alliance, LoRaWAN technology. That'll be an M.2 with appropriate, obviously, antenna configuration, et cetera. And we're, hopefully able to accommodate the variety of platforms and server technologies for LoRaWAN that are out there. We do have maybe a shorter term option that we're working on as well. So we'd be very interested in the need for LoRa in your space.
So I have another question.
Okay. Yeah.
Has Lenovo embedded the Azure, Amazon, and Google Edge services into the Edge platform device, or is it just a bare x86 type server?
No, it is. So we are AWS Greengrass certified, which is the Amazon, and we're also Microsoft Azure IoT certified. So we can provide different images, in advance to shipment, but they're both certified, and these also work off of Windows and Ubuntu Linux as well. So very flexible. All good?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
You bet. So the expansion box that you see on the bottom is very easy to attach. There's 3 screws on the bottom of the Nano IoT. And just for fun, I don't know if you can see my camera, but I'm actually holding the Nano unit here so you can get an idea of the size. So the I/O box picks up 2 PoE plus ports to drive cameras, software-defined serial ports for 232, 422, 45, 4 DIs and 4 DOs for various sensors, LED lights. We're showing examples of gate and door sensors and doorbells, et cetera, and security switches for the doors, but it could be any number of sensors. And it allows for DC input to the I/O box from a standard industrial rack as opposed to using an AC adapter, which you could also use. We have a little pigtail that goes into the DC input. You do drive the power. If you combine these two, you drive through the I/O box, and we have a USB-C to USB-C jumper for communication and power up to the Nano IoT. This is just a little more exploded view. And again, when you hold these, it's very rugged. It's what you expect in a Think branded product. So the customers really like that. And truly, it's a fanless design. And we supply the Nano IoT in processors from a lower cost Celeron to a Core i3, and we just rolled out a Core i5, and I believe in the roadmap we're moving to an i7. So a lot of power, right now up to 8 gigabyte of RAM and storage up to a terabyte. So we're packing quite a bit along with the integrated LTE gateway within the device. Couple of use cases. It's actually a real world manufacturing application where we're able to handle all these types of sensors with a single Nano IoT and I/O box, from cameras through the I/O box PoE plus ports to monitoring and controlling sirens, driving displays, and connecting to inverters and sensors. Another very popular application these days is in retail, and Lenovo is very big in the retail space. So we can support you not only with the edge computing devices, but display technology, and Frank will get into that a little bit more later, and we have a nice video on some of the unique display, various shapes, squares, rectangulars, built-in cameras for AI. So like in this application, a single Nano IoT solution is monitoring the cameras, driving a couple of signs, digital signage, sensors for security in the room, monitoring for theft, and using AI to enhance the feedback from the user experience, the traffic in the room, what products they like, on and on in terms of the AI capabilities in the end solution. Okay, here we go. Now, moving on to our EPC 300, you can see a little more beefed up product. It's IP50 dustproof rated. Actually, we're going to include that. We're going to go beyond the mil standard 810 and in the next gen on the Nano as well. 0 to 50 degrees C rated again, and we are, like I said, working on additional extended temperature ranged versions in our next gens. Security built in with TPM, DIN and Visa mounting capabilities, just like on the Nano IoT. Very rugged device. It's a Core i5 typically, and 1 second. Okay. My computer wanted to reboot and do updates, so I don't think it's a good time for that. And again, this is also LoRa ready. Again, we don't have a SKU yet for LoRa, but that's coming soon. So we're kind of showing some expanded use cases that you might see in an outdoor, could be oil and gas, could be a construction environment. Connecting to things like, weather stations, environmental detection. I think I saw somebody in the audience that's very involved in water environmental monitoring, force detection activities to alert, the fire departments, et cetera. And, these are real applications that we're involved and engaged on. And here we have an array of solar panels, and there's backup storage facilities being proposed with the future LoRa technology. and of course, cellular backhaul. I'm really excited about this slide because, you know, the machine builders, and by machine building, I mean, you know, very expensive, you know, equipment that goes out in the field. Companies want to be able to provide additional value to their customers and provide predictive maintenance and, you know, monitor the usage as needed to support the customer, and also be able to provide that service directly to the customers to be able to monitor internally. And this all, you know, is addressed by the Industry 4.0 initiative. Now, this also really ties into factory automation, but the challenge is often the variety of the PLCs and sensors that are in the field. So this is actually a diagram of us partnered with a particular ISV that focuses in this area. And, you know, again, if, you know, not only are they connecting to lots of different types of machine sensors and PLCs, but they're also able to transfer that data up to the common platforms like AWS and SAP HANA and IBM Watson, MindSphere and Azure, et cetera. And here's kind of a nice list to kind of put it in reality. You know, Rockwell and Siemens and Mitsubishi and Omron, you know, all these different legacy PLC manufacturers that control this industrial market, many of them want to provide their platform that works very nicely with their own PLCs, but, you know, what about the rest of the equipment? And, you know, the hard part, if you're starting or initiating a design for your equipment or your factory, to accomplish this in your platform, you would have to literally write drivers for all of those PLCs. So in this case, we have a partner that's already written those drivers, and, you know, there's quite a few good ISV vendors out there that are attacking the same issue. And then just kind of finish up on the hardware. The IoT 520 is really a lower compute device, more of a gateway, but with some really nice input outputs. And then I don't want to overlook our data center group, our SE350. And so in this case, you have your data center in the cloud, but maybe you need to get a little closer to the edge. And one of these mobile servers might be in a mobile unit, say in oil and gas, communicating to multiple edge computers at various drill sites, for example, feeding that data back to the mobile unit and doing the heavy lifting on the server technology. These are up to Xeon processors and 16 terabyte of storage. I mean, it's, you know, fantastic device. So hopefully that helps, and back to you, Frank.
Thanks, Chris. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to jump back to OEM and what, in essence, OEM means to Lenovo and what the marketplace really is. It's it's basically us going out to the market and working with companies that use our underlying compute. Could be a tablet, could be a screen, could be a monitor, any of our portfolio, into a bigger solution that they make and they bring to the market. What we found was a lot of popularity, a lot of success in these 5 industries: digital signage, healthcare, security surveillance, oil and gas, and as you know, Chris spoke quite a bit about industrial automation and Industry 4.0. Next slide. And you know, what we're really offering within the OEM program is one thing that we found was whether it's a machine maker, an appliance maker, an OEM of any sort, one of their largest challenge is the Intel CPU refresh, which happens every, you know, call it 11, 12 months, once a year. Once that CPU refresh happens, the hardware gets refreshed, and you can automatically assume what happens to their software platform or their image. They've got to do a little bit of reorchestrating, rewriting of their application and certification to be able to comply and work and test with the new hardware configuration. So to avoid a lot of that pain point, we've got products across our portfolio where we can offer and guarantee a 2, 3, 4, 5-year life cycle. And that's, you know, all the way through our PC Think Center line, all the way through our professional workstation line, and all the way to our data center group products. One of the very cool things within the program, or one of the value-added services that we can offer, is program management and notification. So for an OEM, a machine maker that has standardized on pick your product, we will actually notify them with alerts as we're coming to the end of the life cycle of that product, whether it's a 2, 3, 4, 5-year product. So we follow their SKUs, we monitor their SKUs, and automatically send email updates based on where we are in that life cycle or that customer's design, if you will. We do a lot of customization. So some companies create appliances and they don't want Lenovo anywhere on the chassis or the bezel. So one of the things that we can do is debrand, whether it's the Lenovo logo on the bezel on the front of the device, or whether it's on the side of a workstation where it's usually embossed. We can do the removal of that. And on the flip side, we can also rebrand for a customer with their logo. We can even do the debranding of the cardboard packaging that it comes in. Literally strip the Lenovo nomenclature off of everything and make it appear like our customer's appliance or box or a machine, if you will. And what you see on the far right there, it's a worldwide label that allows us to get, or even allows you or our customer to get our products, ship our products worldwide. So it really allows you to get past customs, past the borders, without the challenge or need of being held up because of NAFTA certificates or what have you. Pretty large when it comes to pretty large market that we found in this space when it comes to the retail space with commercial screens. I've got another slide I'll jump a little deeper into in 2 upcoming slides. So next one, Chris. And just to give you an example here of some of the customers or markets that we're working with. So, a very glorified example is the healthcare space, GE Healthcare, GE Medical. So a customer of ours where it is our underlying compute or workstation that actually runs and manages that CAT scan machine. We do the same with imaging devices. We've got a lot of customers where we create those healthcare carts that you see on the top as well. We offer tablets for outpatient care, where an outpatient can actually communicate with their doctor, physician, or nurse via custom tablet, custom lockdown image and application. And one thing we've recently done when it comes to COVID now, right here in Canada, we've deployed a number of tablets in a number of hospitals where if a nurse or a physician or doctor need to speak to a patient, they can actually communicate with them through the tablet versus having to be face-to-face and exposing them to the harmful disease or virus that we're all faced with today. So that's another real live current day example. Uber Eats does something simple and crazy with tens of thousands of our tablets across North America, where they want the back of the tablet painted white, and we can do customization unique as that as well. We work with a number of companies where we can do custom kiosks. So another example here in Canada, we're working with McKesson and developing a pharmacy kiosk for them, where you approach a pharmacy, you can actually do a lot of the data entry yourself without necessarily the use of a pharmacist or speaking to one. And another example I'm thinking is, maybe Canadian Blood Services is another example. So over 500 blood donor clinics across Lenovo, again powered by Lenovo OEM solutions. And then I'll call it another example that we may interact or see on a fairly regular basis. For any of you McDonald's fans or customers, certainly a fan of their coffee as of late. But those kiosks, when you walk into a McDonald's, powered by formerly a Tiny and now Lenovo Nano. Again, when it comes to the ISV space, we do a lot of things with video walls and security companies to develop turnkey solutions with them. But next slide, Chris. And when it comes to, I said I was going to circle back to the digital signage. We do custom cut LCD panels that are really springing up in the retail space. So we do custom end caps that you see with companies like Coke. There, you'll see a little dot in the center of the display on the top left under Lenovo Smart Display. That's really an AI camera, and we can do cool things, and we've done things like maybe that Coke display has half bottled water, half Coke. The AI camera can tell what type of an individual or what type of persona is approaching that aisle end or cap. And it could be in a retail grocery store, could be in a gas station. But let's use the example of bottled water and Coke. And based on the persona of a bottled water drinker versus a Coke drinker, you may dynamically push an ad to the top screen there, where it's a 2-for-1 sale on bottled water. Persona of a Coke drinker, you may push a 2-for-1 sale of Coke. And the AI analytics are very cool. Like, we can tell if it's a male or if it's a female, if they're happy or they're sad, how much time they spent looking at the ad, and if they actually reached in and grabbed the bottle of water or Coke. So really bringing that AI and analytics, that computational that needs to happen in AI analytics, right to the edge, right to that stand. And as I said earlier, we've got 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot sizes, even shelf ends where you can dynamically put pricing, update sales, have a QR IR code that can be scanned, and dynamically update content on the fly versus print, which is, as we know, print, as soon as something gets printed, it's old, right? And a number of different form factors. We can do the shelf topper. We can do the impulse strip on the bottom right there, where it's a ruggedized case, ruggedized glass. So if Johnny Boy decides to smash his mother's or father's cart into that display, it's not going to crack or break. Next slide, Chris. And that, really brings us to the end. Is there, do you want to mention something, Chris? Oh, yeah. So what we did want to display is one of our showcase customers in Naples, Florida. Yeah, you can, Oaks Farms is the name of the store. For those in Canada, it reminds me of a Whole Food store, if you will. But this is a premier customer of ours, where we've got over 500 custom cut displays deployed in their store. And actually, one more thing that comes to mind, that Coke display, we actually did something very similar to that for a company by the name of Flonase, which is an allergy medication or allergy medication that's really on the shelf. And we publish content as informative as pollen content right from the Weather Network. And with that display in the stores where they deployed that display, they've actually noticed a 35 to 40% increase in sales, just because of, I guess, the information, the awareness that they're driving, and really because it's a powerful presentation that's being delivered there. But Chris, go ahead, roll the reel there on on the video.
Yeah, and when you're watching the video, pay attention to all the different displays. That's really what we're providing, along with the computers that are driving them behind the scenes, and the real-time updates. So here we go. Okay, so obviously that's a pretty high-tech store. So let me go back to.
So yeah, let's see if there's that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation, everyone. So what we'll do is we'll pause for any discussion, any questions that people may have. Brenda, are you thinking to open up the mics, or are we gonna go with the text into the chat?
Well, I was going to say, if Chris, if you want to stop sharing, we'll ask everybody to actually unvideo or video themselves so we can actually see your faces, and then we'll start having questions. I'll give everybody a second because I know it takes a moment to get everybody live. There we go. Human contact.
Yes, social distancing here.
Yeah, social distancing, but we're all on the screen. So we did have some questions. So let me see if I can bring up one. Oh boy, I've got a whole bunch here. Okay. So Jim, do you want to unmic yourself? You have quite a few questions, so it might be just easier for you to turn around, unmic, and ask the questions. Are you still there, Jim? Maybe we lost him. Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have questions that they'd like to turn around and do?
Oh, I also saw another one of our colleagues, James Franklin, join. So for any of you channel partners out there, another staple in the Calgary, Edmonton, Alberta region for our Lenovo channel partners on the data center side of the group. Hey, James.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
How's everyone?
Good,
Good.
good.
Sorry.
Hey,
So
Steve
does
Baird here. I
anyone
got a
have
question.
questions?
Dress up like you, Frank, so I'm going to stay off camera.
All good, all good, buddy.
Great, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So there's some questions we see, Brenda?
Yeah.
I think Stephen
Steve?
Barrett had a question.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Chris. A great presentation, guys. Much appreciated. Just technically, it's just out of interest. You've got those smart cut displays.
Yeah.
How are those actually interfaced back to to the computing hardware? Is that's obviously not standard video? I mean, how is that handled?
Yeah, so it is handled by like a Lenovo Tiny or Lenovo Nano device, and you'll traditionally have one for each aisle. There's about, I believe, 10 screens we can connect up into one, because through the screen technology that we have, proprietary daisy chain technology that we have, now when you go over to another aisle or another end cap, unless you can run a cable under the ground or over into the rafters or drop ceiling, you'd need another computer, Lenovo Tiny or Nano or what have you device. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it does. You've got some kind of a daisy chain video arrangement.
You got it. You got it.
Cool. Thanks. I'm joining you from the moon, by the way. If you,
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's good.
What's the weather like there?
it's cold.
Anyone else
Very
have
cool.
questions?